Hello, dear viewers of my video. I hope you enjoy watching it and look forward to your feedback in the comments. I had been working in that company for 13 years, and until a few weeks ago, I thought nothing could really surprise me anymore. I knew all the little quirks of the office, the people who always showed up late, and the ones who lived for being the first at their desks, the managers who cared about results, and the ones who cared about nothing but looking good during meetings. I had survived budget cuts, 2 restructurings, and countless waves of layoffs. But I stayed because, unlike many others, I had a role that nobody else could do. I was the translator and cultural mediator, and for years, I had been the bridge between our company and a group of business partners from Malta. They didn't just need someone who knew the language. They needed someone who understood the nuances, the tiny expressions that didn't exist in English, but could change the entire tone of a negotiation. And that someone was me. I was proud of my work. I believed that even though I wasn't on the stage making big speeches, I was one of the people holding everything together behind the curtain. But then he arrived. Our old CEO retired suddenly, some vague announcement about wanting to spend more time with his grandchildren. Within days, rumors started flying about his replacement. Some people hoped for an internal promotion, someone who at least knew the company and its people. Instead, we got an outsider. His name was Adrian Cole. He walked into the office on his first Monday morning like he had been running the place for years. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, a smile that never reached his eyes. He shook hands too quickly, glanced at people without really looking at them, and then went straight into a welcome speech in the main conference room. "From today," he said, his voice full of false confidence, "we're not just another company in this industry. We're going to be the company." The words were big, but the way he spoke made it sound like a threat instead of inspiration. People glanced at each other, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. I clapped politely, though my stomach twisted. Something about the way he scanned the room made me feel like he wasn't seeing us as people, just as tools he could move around until they broke. It didn't take long for the arrogance to show. On his second day, during a strategy meeting, he confused Malta with Maltanska, a small region in Poland. When someone corrected him, he waved his hand and said, "Details, details. What matters is results." He laughed as though geography was just an annoying trivia question and not the foundation of our international contracts. He called one of my colleagues by the wrong name 3 times in a row. He interrupted people mid-sentence and rolled his eyes when anyone tried to explain something technical. I noticed that instead of listening, he would look at his phone, sometimes even smirking at whatever message he was reading while others spoke. By the end of that first week, the mood in the office had changed. People didn't talk as openly in the kitchen. Laughter disappeared from the corridors. Everyone seemed to sense that trouble was coming. And me? I felt invisible. During one meeting, I tried to explain the importance of preparing carefully for the upcoming negotiations with our Maltese partners. I mentioned how last year, one word mistranslated nearly cost us a contract. Adrian leaned back in his chair, smiled that empty smile, and said, "Mila, we're in the 21st century. Everyone speaks English now. Don't exaggerate your importance." The room went silent. My face burned, but I forced myself to keep calm. 13 years of experience, dismissed with one arrogant comment. That was when I realized, this man didn't just underestimate me. He didn't understand the company at all. And worse, he didn't care to. When Adrian Cole arrived, I thought things couldn't possibly get worse. I was wrong. 2 weeks after he took over as CEO, he introduced the team to someone new. "Everyone, meet Emily," he announced, his arm gesturing like a showman presenting the star of a cheap theater act. "She's joining us as an international communications specialist. Fresh perspective, cutting-edge skills. Exactly what this company needs." Emily walked in with a bright red blazer and the kind of smile that was meant to say, "I already belong here." She couldn't have been more than 27, and yet she carried herself like she had built the entire company herself. She sat down across from me, adjusted her blazer, and offered me a quick glance that wasn't really a smile. More like an appraisal, as if she was checking me off her mental list of obstacles. "Pleasure to meet you," I said politely, extending my hand. She shook it without warmth. "I've heard a lot about you," she replied, her voice carefully neutral, but with an undertone I couldn't quite place. 13 years here, right? That's impressive." It sounded less like admiration and more like a reminder that I was old furniture. From the first days, Emily made it clear she wasn't here to learn from anyone. She spoke during meetings as if she had already mastered every aspect of the business. She corrected colleagues with half-baked knowledge, and whenever someone mentioned my role as a translator and cultural mediator, she would lean back with a faint smirk, as though the entire concept was outdated. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was simply nervous and overcompensating. But then came the little digs. During coffee breaks, she would say things like, "It must be exhausting to keep up with all those old-fashioned language barriers. I guess that's why people our age are focusing on tech solutions instead." Or, when someone praised me for solving a miscommunication with our Maltese partners, she would remark, "Interesting that they still rely on human translations. Most serious companies are switching to automated systems. More efficient, you know?" It wasn't subtle. She wanted me, and everyone else, to hear that she considered me unnecessary. The final blow came during one of our weekly strategy meetings. Adrian had gathered the department heads and a few specialists, myself included. As usual, he started with grand declarations about efficiency and cost-cutting. Then Emily raised her hand. "Adrian," she began, her voice dripping with confidence, "I've been reviewing our processes, and I think we're wasting a lot of resources. Take translations, for example. Why are we still relying on human mediators when there are sophisticated automated systems that can do the job faster, cheaper, and without human error?" I felt my chest tighten. All eyes shifted to me. "That's not accurate," I said firmly but calmly. "Automated systems are helpful for basic tasks, but they miss cultural nuance. Our partners don't just want literal translations. They want someone who understands context, tone, and diplomacy. That's why they trust us." Emily gave me a pitying look, like I was a child clinging to an old toy. "With respect, Mila, I think you're overestimating your role. AI systems have advanced a lot. It's 2025, not 1995. Maybe personal translators still matter in tiny firms, but for serious business, automation is the future." The silence was sharp. I glanced at Adrian, waiting for him to defend me, or at least acknowledge my years of expertise. Instead, he leaned forward, his eyes gleaming in that cruel way I had come to know. "You know, Emily makes an excellent point," he said slowly. "I've been wondering myself why we're paying a full salary for something an app could handle in seconds." I froze. My ears burned, but I forced myself to speak. "With respect, Adrian, you weren't here last year when one mistranslated phrase nearly cost us a contract worth millions. No software could have prevented that. It required understanding the culture and building trust, things machines cannot replicate." But he cut me off with a laugh. "Mila, don't take it personally. We're modernizing, that's all. You've done decent work here, but the company can't carry dead weight forever. If we can cut costs, we will. Simple as that." The room stayed painfully quiet. No one dared to look at me. Emily crossed her legs and smiled slightly, satisfied. She had gotten exactly what she wanted, to make me look obsolete. Adrian leaned back in his chair, then looked straight at me. "Consider this your notice. Effective immediately, your role is redundant. HR will handle the details. I don't need such garbage in the company." Garbage. That was the word he used. My throat tightened, but I refused to let him see me break. I looked him in the eye and said, "Then I wish you good luck on Wednesday." He frowned. "What's happening Wednesday?" "You'll see," I replied quietly. I gathered my notebook and walked out of the room without looking back. My legs felt heavy, but I kept them moving. Inside, I was shaking. 13 years of loyalty, erased in a single meeting because of a smug newcomer and a CEO too arrogant to understand what he was destroying. I could already imagine what would happen when our Maltese partners arrived on Wednesday. Adrian, so confident that his automated systems would handle everything. Emily, glowing with pride at her brilliant suggestion. And me, gone, dismissed as useless. They thought they no longer needed me, but Wednesday was coming. When I walked out of that conference room, I made sure to keep my back straight, my head held high, and my steps steady. Inside, I felt like my chest was breaking apart. But I knew one thing. If I showed weakness in front of Adrian and Emily, they would feed on it like vultures. The corridors felt colder than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me as I walked past familiar desks. People lowered their eyes when I passed, pretending to be busy with emails or staring too long at spreadsheets. They had all heard what had just happened, but no one dared to say a word. It wasn't that they didn't care. It was that they were afraid that one wrong look at me would make them the next target. I reached my desk, pulled out my personal notebook, and placed it carefully into my bag. I didn't have much there. Some pens, a couple of photographs, and the tiny Maltese English dictionary I'd carried since my first year. My hands were steady, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone around me could hear it. As I zipped up the bag and slung it over my shoulder, I whispered to myself, "They think they don't need me. Let's see how long that lasts." By the time I reached home, my phone was already buzzing. At first, I ignored it, too drained to deal with anything. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, replaying Adrian's words in my head. "I don't need such garbage in the company." Every time I thought about it, the humiliation burned deeper. 13 years reduced to one cruel sentence. But then I glanced at my phone, a message from Mark, one of the project managers, who had always treated me with respect. "Mark, Mila, you won't believe this. The partners are here. It's a disaster already," I frowned, my breath catching. A second message came right after. "Mark, they asked for you the moment they walked in. Adrian told them you're no longer with us." The look on their faces. Mila, I swear, they were furious. I put the phone down and pressed my palms against my eyes. Exactly as I had predicted, the Maltese didn't like surprises. They valued relationships, loyalty, and continuity. To them, dismissing me wasn't just a staffing decision. It was an insult, another vibration. This time it was from Anna, my closest friend at work. Anna. "They don't trust Emily." She tried to greet them, but it was embarrassing. Her pronunciation is terrible, and she kept smiling like it was some casual social call. They cut her off mid-sentence. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. I had warned them, over and over, that nuance mattered more than literal words. But Adrian and Emily had brushed me aside. And now, the very people they needed most were slipping through their fingers. As the evening went on, the messages kept coming. "Mark, Emily just told the partners she could use a live translation app for the negotiations." One of them actually laughed. He said, "If this is how you respect us, perhaps we are in the wrong place." Adrian's face turned red. "Anna, they keep asking why you're not there." Adrian tries to dodge the question, but it's making things worse. "Lucas," from finance. "I can't believe it, Mila. First meeting is basically ruined." They cut it short after 30 minutes. No agreements, no progress, just tension. I read each message slowly, my chest tightening, not from sadness, but from a strange mixture of vindication and sorrow. Part of me wanted to scream, "See? This is what happens when you don't listen to me." But another part of me just felt heavy, because I had loved this work. I had cared about these relationships. Watching them crumble because of Adrian's arrogance was painful, even if it wasn't my fault. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in 13 years, I had nowhere to go, no emails to check, no contracts to prepare. The silence of my apartment felt unnatural. But then my phone lit up again. Anna. Day 2. Even worse. They refused to sit down with Emily. They asked for you by name, Mila. Adrian tried to cover, saying you weren't available. They weren't having it. Mark. One of the partners told Adrian, without Mila, there is no deal. The whole room went silent. He tried to laugh it off, but they weren't joking. I stared at the messages, unable to decide whether to feel proud or broken. Proud that my years of work had meant so much, but broken that Adrian had to learn it this way, through failure instead of trust. Later that afternoon, Anna called me. I almost didn't pick up, but her name flashing on the screen felt like a lifeline. "Are you sitting down?" she asked without preamble. "Yes," I whispered. "It's chaos here." The partners walked out of the meeting. Walked out, Mila. They said they refused to sign anything until you are brought back. Adrian tried to chase after them, but they told him he had insulted them beyond forgiveness. I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. A small part of me wanted to celebrate the poetic justice of it all, but most of me just felt tired. Tired of being underestimated, tired of being humiliated, tired of watching incompetence ruin everything I had built. "What about Emily?" I asked finally. Anna sighed. "She looks lost. She tried to joke with them, but it was painful to watch. She doesn't know their culture, Mila. She doesn't understand that for them, respect is everything. She treated them like casual tourists. They'll never forgive her for that." Silence stretched between us for a moment. Then Anna added softly, "Mila, they were right. Without you, there is no deal." When I hung up, I set the phone on the table and sat in the quiet for a long time. I thought about the years I had given to that company, the late nights, the endless flights, the constant effort to bridge cultures and keep fragile relationships alive. Adrian had dismissed all of it with one arrogant decision, and now he was watching his empire crumble. I didn't need to do anything. The damage was unfolding on its own. For the first time in days, I let myself smile. Because I knew. This was only the beginning. For 2 days, I lived in a strange fog. My phone kept buzzing with fragments of chaos from the office, but I tried to keep some distance. I needed to breathe, to recover from the humiliation. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adrian's smug face as he dismissed me, and Emily's satisfied smile when she thought she had replaced me. On the third morning, I woke up to a message from Anna. "Anna, looks like they signed something. Adrian is celebrating. Emily's acting like a star. Everyone is pretending the crisis is over." My stomach twisted. Signed something, I thought. It was impossible. The Maltese had been furious. They had demanded me back. How could they have agreed to a deal without me? Another message came shortly after, this time from Lucas in finance. "Lucas, management just announced the contract is finalized. They're opening champagne. But, honestly, Mila, the whole thing feels rushed." Too rushed, I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. A wave of sadness washed over me. For 13 years, I had poured myself into protecting that partnership, carefully balancing respect, culture, and trust. And now, they had signed a piece of paper without me, as though I had never existed. I wanted to believe it would all collapse immediately, but a darker thought crept in. What if it doesn't? What if they really can replace me? The idea cut deeper than any insult Adrian had thrown at me. For a few days, the office buzzed with forced optimism. Photos circulated on the internal channels. Adrian shaking hands with the Maltese delegation, Emily standing nearby with her red blazer and fake smile, holding a pen as though she had personally written the agreement. I scrolled through the pictures slowly, my throat tight. They looked triumphant. My former colleagues left little comments underneath. "Great success," and "Future looks bright." But even through the screen, I sensed the unease. I knew too well how quickly a smile could hide disaster. Still, the sadness lingered. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping lukewarm tea, wondering if I had been wrong. Maybe my work really didn't matter. Maybe all those years of careful communication had been a waste. But then, a week later, Lucas called me. "Mila," he said, his voice tense. "You need to hear this." "What is it?" He hesitated. The contract. It's a mess. A complete disaster. My heart skipped. What do you mean? Legal just reviewed the final document. Mila, it wasn't even written properly. They used machine translation for most of it. Half the clauses don't make sense, and the other half give the Maltese almost total control. I gripped the edge of the table. Explain. They slipped in provisions we never agreed to. Exclusive rights, veto power over all project decisions, even financial control in some areas. It's unbelievable. We basically handed them the keys to the entire operation. I pressed a hand against my mouth. My sadness turned into a bitter mix of anger and grim satisfaction. Didn't anyone notice? I asked. That's the worst part, Lucas sighed. Emily insisted the document was fine. She told Adrian the translation software was state-of-the-art. Nobody wanted to contradict her. So we signed without double-checking. For a moment, I couldn't speak. 13 years of warnings. 13 years of insisting that nuance mattered. And this was the result. A contract that gave away everything. That evening, Anna came over with a bottle of cheap wine and 2 glasses. We sat on my couch, the city lights flickering through the window as she filled in the rest of the story. Adrian still doesn't understand how bad it is, she said, shaking her head. He thinks it's just a technical issue, that legal can fix the wording. But Mila, the partners are already acting like they own us. They're demanding changes to schedules, budgets, even staffing. And because of the contract, we can't say no. I stared at her, the glass heavy in my hand. So they trapped him. Exactly. Anna's eyes flashed. They used his arrogance against him. And Emily, God, she's walking around like she's some genius negotiator, but everyone can see she has no idea what she's doing. I laughed bitterly. She wanted me gone. She got her wish. Now she's drowning. Anna leaned closer, lowering her voice. The truth is, Mila, everyone's whispering your name. They all know this wouldn't have happened if you'd been there. Her words filled me with both warmth and pain. Warmth, because my work had mattered after all. Pain, because now it was too late. The following week, news started leaking beyond the office walls. A colleague from another branch called me out of the blue. Mila, is it true? He asked. Is what true? That the Maltese contract basically put them in charge of everything? People are saying Adrian signed away control of the project. I closed my eyes. It's true. There was a low whistle on the other end of the line. Unbelievable. He thought he was showing strength, but he just showed weakness. Exactly. And the worst part was, it had been so avoidable. One night, long after Anna had left, I sat alone with the Maltese English dictionary on my lap. I flipped through its worn pages, each one marked with notes and underlined phrases from years of negotiations. Words that had saved deals, clarified intentions, avoided conflicts. And now, all of it had been ignored in favor of a machine that couldn't tell the difference between courtesy and insult. I thought about Adrian raising his glass in celebration, about Emily posing for photographs as if she had achieved something historic. And I imagined the Maltese partners hiding their satisfaction behind polite smiles, knowing they had secured control without lifting a finger. My sadness turned into something sharper, not just anger, but resolve. Because if Adrian thought this was over, he was wrong. This was only the beginning of his downfall. It didn't take long for the truth about the contract to explode. By Monday morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. This time, the messages weren't from just Anna or Lucas. People I hadn't heard from in months were writing, their words full of disbelief. Mark, the board is furious. They just realized the Maltese deal could cost us millions, Lucas. Clients are asking questions. Some are threatening to pull out Anna. Panic everywhere. People are whispering your name like it's a forbidden word. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the screen, feeling both vindicated and strangely hollow. For so long, I had been the quiet backbone of those negotiations, and now that I was gone, the structure was collapsing. At the office, things were even worse than I imagined. Anna called me during her lunch break, whispering like she was afraid someone would overhear. Mila, you wouldn't believe it. The Maltese partners have already sent a letter refusing to renegotiate. They're pointing to the contract Adrian signed, his signature, his responsibility. According to the document, they control budget allocations, project timelines, even staffing decisions. We can't move without their approval. I rubbed my forehead. So we're stuck. Stuck, she confirmed. And legal says the only way out would be a lawsuit, but that could take years and cost more than the contract itself. I could hear voices buzzing in the background, frantic footsteps, the ringing of phones. What about Emily? I asked. Anna gave a humorless laugh. Emily? She hasn't been seen since Friday. No one knows if she's sick, hiding, or just quit. Her desk is empty. Her blazer is still on her chair. For a moment, I couldn't decide whether to laugh or shake my head. The girl who had been so eager to take my place had vanished the second things got hard. And Adrian? Anna sighed deeply. He's pretending everything's fine. He keeps calling emergency meetings, barking orders, but it's all smoke. The partners won't take his calls. They sent a formal note saying communication must go through them directly now. That hit me harder than I expected. Adrian had wanted control so badly, and now he had lost even the illusion of it. By Tuesday, the panic spread beyond the walls of the office. Clients started calling me, not the company. Somehow, word had gotten out that I was no longer there, and they connected the dots. One client, a man I'd helped through a delicate cross-border deal years ago, sounded furious. Mila, what happened over there? Why didn't anyone tell us you left? We trusted you. Now we hear they signed some nonsense that could ruin operations for half the region. I wish I had an answer, I admitted softly, but I wasn't part of it. Exactly, he snapped. Then his tone softened. Look, if they don't fix this, we'll have to withdraw. We can't risk being tied to that kind of chaos. I ended the call with a sinking feeling. One by one, the threads were unraveling. On Wednesday, Anna sent me a voice message. Her voice shook. Mila, it's insane here. People are crying in the bathrooms. Projects are frozen because the Maltese are demanding approval for everything. Internal documents are locked. We can't even send a draft proposal without their sign-off. And Adrian, oh, Mila, he's shouting in the corridors. But no one listens anymore. The partners refuse to meet him. They say he insulted them beyond forgiveness. He looks smaller every day. I replayed her message twice. My chest tight. This was the crisis I had predicted, but it was happening faster, harder, and crueler than even I expected. By the end of the week, the office was unrecognizable. Anna described it in detail over another late-night call. The shareholders are circling like sharks, she whispered. They're demanding answers. Adrian keeps insisting he can turn it around, but he has nothing to show them. Employees are polishing resumes in the open. No one believes in him anymore. And Emily? I asked. She hasn't come back. It's like she vanished into thin air. HR won't say a word. Some people think Adrian pushed her out quietly to cover his tracks. Others say she ran before the storm hit. Either way, she's gone for a moment. We both stayed silent, letting that sink in. Finally, Anna added, Mila, it feels like the company is bleeding out, and the one person who could stop it. Well, you know who that is. Her words sat heavy on my chest. On Friday, I saw the first headline online. Contract error puts, company name at risk. Maltese partners gain control. The article was brutal, quoting anonymous insiders who admitted the deal had been prepared using automatic translation tools. Adrian's photo was splashed across the page, his smile suddenly looking foolish, even desperate. The comments underneath were worse. Investors speculating about collapse, former employees laughing bitterly, outsiders calling it the biggest blunder of the year. I scrolled through slowly, my emotions a tangled knot. There was pain, of course there was, but also something like grim justice. Because now the whole world could see what I had seen from the beginning. Adrian's arrogance wasn't strength. It was weakness dressed in an expensive suit. That evening, Anna sent me one last message. They tried to hold a video call with the Maltese this afternoon. Adrian begged them to reconsider, to adjust the language us of the contract. They refused. They said, "We have what we need. If you don't like it, see us in court." Then they hung up. I sat in silence after reading it. For 13 years, I had worked to build trust with those partners, brick by brick. Adrian destroyed it in less than 2 weeks. And now, he was standing in the ruins, with no one left to listen. It struck me then, sitting in the quiet of my apartment, that Adrian had finally lost the one thing he valued most: control. The partners wouldn't speak to him. The employees didn't trust him. The clients were slipping away. And Emily, the woman who had been so confident in replacing me, had disappeared without a trace. All that was left was panic, chaos, and Adrian's hollow speeches echoing through an office that no longer believed in him. And I knew, with a sharp certainty, that this was only the beginning of his downfall. I always knew the Maltese wouldn't let it go quietly. Their culture valued patience, but when insulted, their memory was long and their judgment final. The official letter came on a Tuesday morning. Anna was the first to send me a photo of it, snapped quickly on her phone before management could lock it away. Due to repeated signs of unprofessionalism, disrespect for our culture, and disregard for the commitments we expected from this partnership, we hereby terminate our cooperation with company name. Effective immediately. Reading those words, my hands trembled. 13 years of carefully built trust erased in a single page, not because the Maltese partners were fickle, but because Adrian and Emily had turned respect into an afterthought. Anna's message followed right after. Anna: "Mila, you were right. They wrote exactly what you warned Adrian about. Cultural nuances, respect, communication. All in black and white." I set the phone down and closed my eyes. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something heavier, something that made my chest ache. I had tried so hard to protect that partnership, and now, not only was it gone, but it was gone in the exact way I had predicted. By mid-morning, the entire office was in chaos. Mark called me, his voice almost drowned out by shouting in the background. "You don't understand, Mila," he said breathlessly. "It's like a bomb went off." Adrian locked himself in the conference room with legal, but the shareholders already know. We're looking at millions lost, maybe more. The partners had rights to entire portions of the project. Now we have no control and no future revenue. The market will destroy us. I leaned against the wall, gripping the phone tighter. "And Emily?" There was a bitter laugh on the other end. "Funny you ask. The internal memo went out this morning. It says the failure is tied to procedural mistakes made by the newly appointed international communications specialist. They're scapegoating her, Mila. Officially. Her name's on it." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The girl who had walked in with her red blazer and smug smile, so sure she was the future, had now been branded the reason for the collapse. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt pity. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't just her fault. She had played her part, yes, but the arrogance had come from above. Adrian had believed he was untouchable, and now the evidence of his incompetence was public. By the afternoon, the news spread outside the company. Financial media outlets published headlines with words like catastrophe, blunder, and humiliation. Analysts wrote that the deal would become a case study in corporate arrogance. One headline stood out to me more than the others: "How ignoring cultural nuances cost millions." I read it 3 times, each sentence echoing what I had tried to explain to Adrian in that meeting, the one where he called me garbage. The article even quoted parts of the termination letter. "We trusted in the professionalism of your team, but were met with disregard, incompetence, and reliance on unsuitable tools for sensitive negotiations. Incompetence, disregard, unsuitable tools." It was as though the partners had written the words directly to Adrian's face. The following day, Anna called me, her voice hushed. "You should see it, Mila." The building doesn't feel the same. It's not an office anymore. It's a battlefield. Departments are pointing fingers at each other. Finance blames legal. Legal blames communications. Communications blames Adrian. No one trusts anyone. And the worst part? Clients are already pulling out. They don't want to be next. Have the shareholders said anything? I asked. They're circling like vultures, she whispered. Everyone knows Adrian's days are numbered. He looks different, Mila. Smaller. He walks down the corridor, and people don't even greet him. They just look at him like he's already gone. Her words painted a picture so vivid I almost saw it. Adrian, the man who once strutted through the building with fake confidence, now reduced to a shadow, stripped of authority, drowning in his own mistakes. Later that week, Lucas sent me a confidential screenshot from an internal report. At the very top, in bold letters, it read, "Primary cause of contract failure, replacement of experienced cultural mediator with automated tools." Below that, the conclusion was clear. Lack of respect for established communication practices resulted in offense to partners and irreversible loss of trust. I stared at those lines for a long time, my throat tightening. This was the proof I had never wanted but always feared, that without me, the company was doomed to fail. And now, the very documents inside their system admitted it. The collapse was quick. By Friday, 3 major clients had withdrawn. Investors were openly questioning whether the company could survive the quarter. Employees flooded LinkedIn with updates about seeking new opportunities. Anna's messages grew darker every day. "Anna, we had an emergency town hall today." Adrian kept repeating, we'll rebuild," but no one believes him. People were shaking their heads. Some just walked out before he finished Anna. HR is swamped. Resignations everywhere. Some departments can't function anymore. Anna. It feels like the end, Mila. The company we knew, it's gone. That night, I sat in my apartment with the Maltese English dictionary in my hands. I flipped through the pages, remembering all the times I had relied on those tiny words to bridge massive gaps between cultures. And then, I remembered Adrian's voice in that meeting, cold and dismissive. "I don't need such garbage in the company." I traced my finger along the spine of the book and whispered to myself, "This garbage kept you alive for 13 years. Without it, you're nothing." For the first time since I'd been fired, I felt something close to peace, because I knew, without a doubt, that I had been right. And Adrian? Adrian was finally facing the truth that had always been waiting for him. Arrogance doesn't build trust, it destroys it. And now, his empire of arrogance was crumbling, one piece at a time.